Happy Wednesday. Welcome back, Heat Seekers. It is the Fantasy Inferno, your weekly redraft shenanigans, which is basically what we're going to be up to tonight. Shenanigans. As always, I'm joined by, I don't know. We're all together tonight. I am with my main man, Bryce. How are you, my friend?
Brad, I'm always good. Thank you for asking. Cody, how are you doing?
Very well, very well. My Cincinnati Bengals are the real deal, it seems like. So,
oh my gosh,
exciting times. Tough
not
road.
Quite as real as the Patriots.
Hey, if you watch my channel, if you watch my latest video, which was like months ago before the season started, I picked the Patriots to win the division.
We just have to take a moment to appreciate the fact of all the things you guys are saying. The Lions have a better record in November than the Rams. I'll just put it out there.
Something to be proud of.
No, I will say that the Bengals, it was weird, but I was excited for them just to mop the floor with Pittsburgh. I mean, you never want to see a game get out of hand, but because I enjoy keeping it competitive, but I love it when a team that's been in the doghouse for a minute just manhandles somebody. And then from the Patriots side of things, I mean, I'm happy for Mac Jones. I hate that Bill Belichick somehow figured it out again, but I'm happy for Mac Jones because everybody kind of overlooked him in this draft, and he's been the best quarterback so far, So I think both of those things, I mean, there's things all of our teams can be happy about. I mean, mine's not really happy, but I just think it's hilarious that we've got more wins in November than Matthew Stafford, and that's just because we have a tie and not 3 losses.
Yeah, I'd say not as many wins.
There's no wins,
just not as many losses.
Yeah, just not as many losses, right?
Well,
Tony, welcome back, my friend. So tonight, it's prime time. We're getting ready for playoffs. We wanted to talk about just some guys that we're excited about going into the playoff stretch that we think will help you. I do want to make sure we talk about how amazing Mr. Sullivan is and that delicious mustache that I'm sure his wife has made him shave off by now because, she was terrified by it, that it was going to poke her. But I want to hit on some news and notes tonight. We got some strange oddities going on in the world. Seattle signed Adrian Peterson to the practice squad. Adrian Peterson may still have a chance to play football again this year. Bryce, what do you think about AP in Seattle? And because of the nightmare that's been Alex Collins and DJ Dallas the last month, do you think that AP gets into the lineup? And do people have to worry about Alex Collins not being the starting running back?
I'm not excited about anybody in that backfield at this point. That team looks like a dumpster fire in itself. I don't think AP is going to bring what they need into there. I mean, it looks like, AP needs to retire at this point. Maybe he's going to try and start for all 32 teams, but it's sad that he might walk into that backfield and literally compete for touches over those guys, but nobody's looked impressive. So I feel like there could have been other places they could look, but fantasy relevance, this has virtually none to me. Cody, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I hate Seattle this year. I hate it pretty much everything about it. I mean, I love DK Metcalf. He's absolutely my guy. But honestly, beyond that, I think, the writing's on the wall. We're going to see one of or potentially both Russell Wilson or Pete Carroll leave that franchise. In my opinion, you go ahead, fire Pete Carroll, do what you can to keep Russell Wilson happy. That's what I do, and that's what I've said this entire year. But yeah, I don't have any shares of Adrian Peterson. I'm not looking to get any, even if he's a free agent. I'm leaving him there. It is sad. It's a sad state of affairs that he might go in there and compete. I would give the ball to probably Travis Homer, to be honest. Like, he's reasonable on third down. That's probably where he excels, is, in pass coverage as well as, catching the ball in the backfield. So I just roll the dice with a guy like that. Maybe DJ Dallas as well. I don't really care. I would give the ball to Russ for the rest of the season, let him throw the ball 30 to 40 times a game and see where you end up. They're not going to be a playoff team, so it is what it is.
Well, and I don't even know what to, it's hard because they've been so bad this year, no matter who the quarterback is, no matter what situation. It's hard to really say I expect one guy or I don't expect another. Like, I don't really know what they're trying to do at this point. When I'm looking at this, because I completely forgot about Homer and Penny, just because DJ Dallas and Alex Collins have kind of been the guys that have been getting most of the snaps. I don't really, if I'm in a fantasy situation where I need to play one, like I had somebody today in a league offer me Alex Collins for Khalil Herbert, where I'm a contender. I think I'm actually tops in the league. It's a dynasty. It's not a redraft, but tops in the league, and I've had a lot of injuries at running back, Michael Carter, Kareem Hunt, Raheem Mostert. I mean, a lot of my backfield has been on IR or is on IR, and I still immediately rejected. Like I had no interest in it. The guy's a starting running back, I guess, but I'm not interested. I'd rather just throw an extra wide receiver out or throw out some other position. I mean, this is a tight end premium, so I've got a couple of tight ends. I could throw another out. So in my mind, it's, look elsewhere. If you're struggling at running back and Seattle's backfield is available, I would still look elsewhere because it's just not trustworthy. I mean, when you look at the last month, they've just not really given you much fantasy production.
Yeah, I honestly feel like that there might be some turmoil with that coaching staff or something, because I feel like what Shane Waldron wants to do on offense and what Pete Carroll wants him to do on offense are completely different things. And it just kind of clashes, and it's just not working. And again, I think Pete Carroll's got to go. He's got to retire. He's just, he's had a good career. He's potentially a Hall of Fame coach. It's just, I think the game maybe has passed him by a little bit. Maybe he can go be a coordinator somewhere if he wants, but I think that relationship has died in Seattle personally.
Yeah, I think they're at the end. Yeah, they probably really should have cut ties a year or two earlier so that they could have salvaged these things with Russell Wilson. I mean, because that's my concern now is if you fire Russ, if you fire Pete, does Russ want to stick around and be part of a rebuild at 32, 33 years old? Or do we get Stafford treatment where he's like, yeah, I want to try to win, send me somewhere else. So it's just kind of a murky situation all around. And I hope it gets worked out because Russell Wilson's a very good quarterback. And I mean, he's had some kind of fluky injuries all over the place in his career. So he could still go for another 5, 6, 7 years, maybe. It seems like he has the determination to. I mean, he worked hard to get back for a team that's losing miserably. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, that's something everybody keeps saying is like, would Russ want to do a rebuild? That sort of a thing. Like, to be honest, if you have Russell Wilson, it's not really a rebuild. Like, you have the most important piece on your entire team already there. Adams is there on the defensive side of the ball. Their defense is not that horrible. Jordan Brooks looks good. They have pieces. So I think that I guess it's a rebuild, but it's accelerated extremely because you got Tyler Lockett, you got DK Metcalf, you got Russell Wilson. You're halfway home. You have some pieces on defense. You add some guys in free agency. You keep some draft picks finally, and you draft a whole lot better than they have been. And you're halfway there. So I think. Yeah, like Pete Carroll's got to go. And that's how coming into this season, that's what I said on my episode to do with the Seattle Seahawks. I think I said, we'll see at the end of the year, they're going to be not going to be as good as they should be. Pete Carroll gets fired. You got to do everything you can. You just don't move on from a guy like Russell Wilson. I don't.
No.
If I'm an owner, whatever. There's no way I'm trading Russell Wilson. I don't care unless it's fractured beyond repair, like Aaron Rodgers' situation. But it's not, I don't think, as long as they get rid of Pete Carroll. That's how I see it.
No, I get that completely. So keeping it in the running back conversation. So, looking through the news, the Vikings have been trying out a lot of running backs. They brought in Carrion, they brought in Brian Hill. What do you get? I know that Dalvin's out for a little bit, probably a couple weeks. It looks like at minimum. Do you guys think that Madison's just kind of going to be the catch-all for everything? Or is there going to be some other running back that comes in and kind of gets some of the carries and gets in on the action? Bryce, where's your head at with this Minnesota backfield? If you were trying to figure out what to do with it for fantasy, because Dalvin Cook was a big piece of, I'm sure, a lot of contending teams. Sully did bring up the other name that needs to be mentioned. Keeney in yeah, I can't say his name.
I misspelled something, to be honest.
No, that the other running back on this roster.
I feel comfortable putting Alexander Madison in my lineup. I mean, when Dalvin Cook missed weeks this year, he was produced. They're probably just trying out other guys just in case Madison potentially gets hurt. Guy that comes in for when Madison maybe carried them all the way down the field and gives them a little spell. I wouldn't look too much into them adding another running back and biting into Madison's volume that I think he gets. I think he gets the same volume that he got when Dalvin Cook was out, and it seemed like he could at least produce 80 90% what Dalvin was doing. So I'm not looking too much into them bringing anybody in, and I feel comfortable putting Alexander Madison in my lineup if I was the Cook owner or just any owner at this point that might have, like me, I had him stashed on my bench because Dalvin Cook gets hurt every year at some point. So I had the surprise of waking up this morning and going to look through my lineups, and I was like, oh, cool. I got him in a league. I've got like Kamara and Swift. So it was kind of nice. Cody, what are your thoughts?
The interesting thing about that Ingwangu running back from Iowa State, I will continue to butcher his name, and if his cousin watches, I do apologize. He's like over 6 foot. He ran in the low 4.4s, or if not 4.4 on the dot. I mean, he's a quick kid.
4.2. He was like
Derrick
a 4.2
Henry.
guy.
Is he Derrick Henry part 2? Is that what
no, he's not as big as Derrick Henry. I mean, he's only 6. He's just over 6 foot and like 210, 215.
He's not 6'4".
He's a smaller dude, but compared to Derrick Henry. But he's an interesting guy. I mean, they took him in like 4th or 5th round. I mean, wasn't like he was a day 3 pick, like a late day 3 pick. I mean, this team had some interest in the kid where they drafted him. So Sully brought the thunder before I could, but I think he's an interesting name to keep an eye on because I think he's faster than Madison. Significantly faster than Madison.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Way faster.
So what do you think about him, Cody?
Yeah, so I agree with Bryce there. Like, and you guys talked about it a little bit last year.
Kanawangu.
Yeah. Anyways, you guys
better
talked
get
about
that
last night a little bit about not. Sully said he doesn't like to handcuff guys, and I agree. I don't like to draft a handcuff to most running backs. Dalvin Cook is the one guy, honestly, maybe the one guy that I absolutely want Alexander Madison because he is going to miss games. He just runs so hard. He runs the ball so hard. He's like, shades of Marion Barber back in the day. So yeah, bringing in another guy, I'm not worried about.
I love you, Sully.
And I'm not worried about another running back coming in either because he's not going to eat into what Madison does. I do think that Kanawangu gets a couple more touches, not necessarily carrying the ball. I think they just need to get that guy the ball. Again, shout out my own channel again. I touched on that saying like it looks like a reach because it was the 4th round for a guy that was probably might not have even been drafted if they didn't take him. So it looks like a reach, but if you look at what they need him to do, and I also called him a Pro Bowl returner, which looks like he might have already done that with 2 touchdowns in 3 weeks or whatever it is. So yeah, he's definitely a piece that he's lightning in a bottle. Just get the ball in his hands, screens, that sort of thing, and let him run down the field. So I think that Alexander Madison is absolutely a must start. Obviously, I wouldn't be starting Kanawangu, and I don't think Sully would either. I don't think anyone would realistically throw him in their lineup, but he's definitely got to keep an eye on and see what he does this week without Dalvin Cook for sure.
Okay, so there you go, people. There's a couple names. The other thing I want to talk on, and we talked a little on it last night's show, is Taysom Hill. Oh, there you go.
I don't think that was it. It was something else because it was he might have tore it if it was 2 years ago because he did play his last year in college. And he had 600 yards or something or 400 yards in 6 games or something like that rushing.
He was also at Iowa State. I mean, that's not, RBU.
Yeah. And it was the COVID year, right? So it was it was a half year sort of thing, whatever it was, 6 games I think they played, something like that.
And we have to remember they're going against Detroit, so the running game could be heavily involved. I mean, if they get up on Detroit, because Detroit hasn't been facing prolific passing offenses recently, so if Minnesota gets up on them, they could focus on the running game and they could try to spell Madison to keep them healthy. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if if he did well. It wouldn't surprise me if he popped off and got you double-digit fantasy points just because of that, that situation. The other news I wanted to touch on, and we touched on last night and we were talking about, but Taysom Hill looks like he's going to be the starter in New Orleans now. Last year he was very fantasy relevant for the 6 weeks or whatever he was the starter. I was the one that was still not sold on it. Anthony asked me if I was sold on it, and I said not a chance. How do you feel about Taysom Hill in this offense with what they've got? Do you guys think, Bryce, I'll Oh, to you as always. Do you think there's value to be had there? Where do you slot him in at in your personal quarterback rankings? QB1, QB2? What do you think about him?
I think he more than likely slots in as a low end QB2. It's funny you mention him because I actually had to pick him up and start him, in a league where I've only rostered one quarterback the whole year. And for some reason, people have rostered two, sometimes three. And I go to the free agency and it was him or like Taylor Heineke. I was like, you know what? I'll take the guy with I like his rushing upside. Seems like when they get in the red zone with Kamara being potentially banged up. I don't hate starting him, but I don't like it either. So low end QB2 is probably where I'm ranking him. I could see a lot of dump offs if Kamara is playing in healthy. It's not like that team can really stretch it down the field with any of the guys they have anyway. So I think he has some similar value that he had last year. Cody, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not super excited. I think everybody else on that team's value goes down, including Kamara. Yeah, if it's a four point for a passing touchdown league and 6 for a rushing, yeah, I mean, I tried to pick him up and start him in one league too, but someone else scooped him on me. So, yeah, I mean, same value, probably, tops out at about 20 points, something like that. And again, everybody else's value around him kind of gets hurt. So I don't know. If you're in a pinch, yeah, do what you got to do. But I certainly wouldn't be picking him up if I had almost any other, 24 other guys potentially, maybe less. But either way, like something like that, 18 other guys, whatever it is that I would rather start over Taysom Hill week in, week out sort of a thing. So, yeah. He's basically proved that he's not a quarterback at the NFL level. He's basically proven that.
Right.
We've seen it. And we know what he is. And he's like, there is value in what he is and what he does. There's obviously there's 40 million reasons why he should be in the NFL, right? But it's 40 million. It's not 80 or 90 or whatever it is, right? So he definitely has some value, but we know that he's not an NFL caliber quarterback. Sorry.
No, and that's my struggle with it. I feel like he's an upgrade to Trevor Siemian for sure, just because Trevor Siemian is a poor game manager at best. He had a few nice weeks to start off his run with New Orleans, but that's kind of what he's been in Minnesota and Denver and anywhere he's been. Yeah, he does okay a couple of times, but then people see what he is. Taysom, I slot Taysom in with all those other guys that are better fantasy assets than actual NFL players because you can be a very good fantasy asset and be a terrible NFL player for what you're supposed to be. And, Taysom is a very athletic kid that struggles accuracy, struggles with a lot of things. And I was struggling feeling good about putting him above most of the other guys. I mean, obviously last time we were just talking kind of our top 10 dynasty options, but just thinking on a weekly basis, even with those 10 guys, I felt like, I probably want to start most of the guys that I like in the QB1 conversation over him, even though he has a lot of rushing upside, because I think, Sally mentioned something like you kind of expect him to get at least one rushing touchdown every game that he plays. And that's great and all. And you can't look down on that, but I struggle with putting a guy like that in my lineup and feeling good about it, especially as we're getting to playoffs, as we're trying to help people build their lineups and get ready for the playoffs. I'm like, can't in good faith tell you to start a guy that just terrifies me, that he could be a boom bust option. I know that last year he had plenty of fantasy points for I think it was the 6 games he was in. I did not verify that, but I wanted to bring it up to other people because I struggled with it last night. And I didn't hate their arguments for it at all. It wasn't for me. I was like, I couldn't tell anybody.
I don't think you can start him and feel comfortable about winning whatsoever. Like if you're pushing for a playoff spot and you're not quite there yet, you really want to start Taysom Hill. Like I'm okay with over the Taylor Heineke, and that's a very good comparison right there, right? Like I'm okay with that because I'm always a proponent to taking the unknown. There's nothing wrong with taking the unknown and taking a shot on the unknown. I mean, we know what he is a little bit, but you know what I mean. He hasn't played yet. Yeah. But so
he is who we thought he is.
Exactly. Honestly, that's exactly what it is. He is. So I don't mind that. But are you really going to start him over I don't know? Are you going to start him over Carson Wentz? Not a chance, right? So
I feel about as comfortable
against the
starting him
Texans.
as I do like Cam Newton, honestly.
Yeah. Who just got pulled.
Yeah,
Right?
but he is still the starter apparently.
Yeah, against mind you, their defense is improving for sure, and it's where it probably should be or should have been all season. But
The
still,
Dolphins.
yeah, but that defense
they were murdering that offensive line. Like it was bad.
Yeah,
Absolutely
that O-line.
destroyed them.
Well, because Carolina's offensive line is bad.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, PJ Walker went in there and struggled just as bad because he had negative time back there. And if you have both of those quarterbacks who are not good at making quick decisions or not like known for their passing ability, and you shut down the potential for them to even scramble, like which Miami did, both of them are going to be bad, and they were. That's why I think Matt Rule is going to leave Cam Newton in for the after the bye.
I don't know what they're competing for at this point. Like, I don't even know what to make of what they're trying to do with the rest of this year. Like, are they trying to see if Cam Newton can be the quarterback so that they can look at other things in the draft?
I can't imagine them not drafting a quarterback.
Honestly. I think they're probably going to throw the Brinks truck at Deshaun Watson, I guess.
Yeah, if they can pry him away,
they wouldn't be bad throwing like Christian McCaffrey for him, or and some obviously, but that dude can't stay healthy.
David Johnson 2.0. Is that what you're about to say? David Johnson 2.0.
I luckily don't have any shares of Christian McCaffrey. I steered clear of him after that sweet year. I was like, he'll never he peaked. He's never going to be a higher value than he is right now. And if he is, it's miraculous. But he has not yet stayed healthy since. Like this guy, I don't touch in fantasy at this point.
So we want to go to the opposite of guys we don't want to touch in fantasy. Tonight we want to talk about guys that are going to win it for us this year. Guys that we really are excited about, guys that are championship contending pieces that we want, guys that are going to just make it rain victory. So I didn't give us necessarily a framework to this conversation. I wanted you guys to kind of provide thoughts of guys that you're really excited about for this playoff stretch that are going to get you some championship glory. So I know I typically start with Bryce, so I'll start with Cody, and we'll go opposites. So Cody, who is somebody or somebody? I mean, you can throw out a couple names to talk about, whatever you want to do. Some guys that you're excited about.
I'm glad you started with me. I actually just wanted to touch on some things that I like to do around now, like some kind of rules. Like if you're pushing for the playoffs, if you're a playoff team right now, trade deadline's over. A couple things that you need to I think you need to do, and these are some things that I'm doing with my playoff teams. Bryce mentioned it earlier. If you have three quarterbacks, cut one, get rid of one. You don't need three. Find another guy on free agency, that potentially will crack your lineup. If you have three tight ends that you've been streaming all year, get rid of one. There's no point in having three of any of those positions. Just pick your two guys, take a look at their schedules, and get rid of one. You free up a roster spot, get a running back, wide receiver, whatever it is. Same thing with IDP leagues. If anyone here is in an IDP league, only have your starters. Just have your starting IDPs. If you need to drop and flip them, whatever, go ahead and do that. The biggest reason why is, you might need to pick them up again later, but there's a lot less competition in free agency right now. A lot of guys are out and dead and don't care anymore, especially if you're in a league that doesn't have, like a loser bowl. Every league I play in pretty much has a loser bowl where there's a little bit of money for, the best of the worst, the bracket of losers that don't make the playoffs. Most of my teams or my leagues are 16 teams, so you can do that. That makes sense, right? But there's incentive there to keep going and keep improving your team, sort of a thing. So if you don't have that, then none of those guys are going to care. They're not going to care about anything anymore. They're barely going to set their lineups. You're hoping that they set their lineups, right? So you're not going to have as much competition in the free agency and on the waiver wire for a lot of these guys. And then go ahead and go through your lineup and be honest with yourself about some of the players that you've hung on to all year. In one of my leagues, I've had Marquez Callaway all year. He's been okay. I've started him once or twice. It's burned me a couple times. It's been a good decision a couple times. He's been, off and on. I probably should have cut him a couple weeks ago. He was pretty good when Jameis Winston was starting. But now that, I just said with Taysom Hill coming in, all those offensive players take a hit. So drop them. Get them off your lineup. Get another guy that's going to come in and hopefully help your team. So, I dropped Callaway for the defense actually. So there you go. So yeah, that's what I'm doing, is going through my rosters and kind of being honest with myself about how it really looks. I do have a team that has Christian McCaffrey. I just went from a championship contender to, I'm now hoping I finish third and make a couple bucks, because it hurt me a fair amount. But anyways, I can go through there and be honest with myself and who's going to make my team better in the playoffs and who's just going to be taking up a roster spot that I can cut the fat. That's basically what I call this whole segment: cut the fat, get it off your roster, get it off your team. So some guys that I like that you can go ahead and pick up. Some of these guys are guys that you can pick up. You should be able to pick up, hopefully. Not super deep anymore like I usually do throughout the season, because those guys aren't going to help you in the playoffs, to be honest. Like, those are guys that, they might improve your team long term. They might get you a bye week win. These are guys that are hopefully going to help you in the playoffs. So take a look at the Tennessee running backs. They're still very available, at least on ESPN, where almost all my leagues are on. Dante Foreman, 38.6%.
Not in any of my leagues, that's for sure, because I got them all.
I own them too. 38.6% owned on ESPN for Deontay Foreman. That's ridiculous. He should be much higher owned than that. And Dontrell Hilliard, who might be the more valuable running back, is only 33.5% owned on ESPN. I'm assuming I don't have too many other apps that I use, so I'm assuming they can't be extremely different on any other ones. So those are definitely two guys that you can go out and grab. They both have a bye week this week, which I like heading into the playoffs. They're both kind of a run-first playoff team. They play Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, San Francisco, and Miami. Their last 4 games, all fairly quality matchups. Those are two guys that I look at grabbing. Another running back, Matt Breida. That's a guy that should be owned a lot more than he is. Zach Moss is like 50% more owned than Matt Breida, and he was just a healthy scratch in favor of Matt Breida. So 13.1% owned on ESPN. Again, it can't be extremely different. Super fast. I think he was like clocked as the fastest player period in the NFL 2 straight years, which was like 2 years ago and the year before, something like that. He can catch the ball to the backfield. He's looked good in the 3 games that he's played so far. Go ahead and grab a guy like Matt Breida. He plays New England, Tampa Bay. That's a tough matchup, but he can catch the ball in the backfield. Carolina, they're looking like they're getting worse. And then New England and Atlanta. So again, all fairly quality matchups, and he's never going to see a stacked box, and they clearly trust him more than a 3rd-round pick, Zach Moss. 2 wide receivers I got. Van Jefferson is a guy that I like. I know we want to talk about Odell Beckham Jr. here when this comes up, so we're going to get there. But Odell Beckham Jr. is 87.8% owned on ESPN. Van Jefferson is 52.8% owned. Again, a playoff team. There you go. Again, a playoff team and a potentially, pass first team with the Rams, right? Since week 7, and this includes time with Robert Woods and Odell Beckham Jr., but since week 7, Van Jefferson's averaged 7.2 targets a game, 3.2 catches a game, 63.8 yards, and he's chipped in 2 touchdowns. So what I want to say about Odell Beckham Jr. here, he had 10 targets, 5 catches, 91 yards and a touchdown. You take away that 1 touchdown pass, 54-yard touchdown pass. He's 4 catches, 9 targets, and 27 yards. You're going to say the same thing about Van Jefferson. Okay, Van Jefferson, if you take that touchdown away, whatever. He's 3 catches for 9 targets, 3 catches, 1 touchdown. Similar thing, but that's his game. That's Van Jefferson's game. At one point in Odell Beckham Jr.'s career, that was his game as well, but it's not right now. He was wide open on that throw, wide open on that play, and just no one was near him to score that touchdown. That's not going to happen with OBJ every game, and it might happen with Van Jefferson. That is Van Jefferson's game. That's not OBJ's game right now. So that's why I'd say take a look at Van Jefferson. Either way, they're both ownable in my opinion, especially because he did succeed. He did have a good enough game to plug into your lineup, but I like Van Jefferson. Last guy is Christian Kirk. I really like Christian Kirk, 59.8% owned. He's a little bit higher owned. It is what it is. He's probably going to be a 1,000-yard receiver this year, which is pretty good. He's averaged throughout the whole season. He's averaged 5.5 targets, 4.5 catches, 57 yards, and has had 4 touchdowns. You take just his catches and yards, that's a perfect flex play. It's 10 plus, chips in a touchdown, he gets you over 15. He's the perfect flex guy, in my opinion. So plays Chicago, the Rams, Detroit, Indianapolis, and Dallas. And then, especially in the playoffs, Detroit, Indianapolis, and Dallas all in domes, especially. Well, I don't know if Arizona's a dome, is it? I think it's open air. But either way, it's in Arizona.
Well, yeah, they can, yeah.
So those are my guys. Those are my guys that I'm looking at right now that are probably, you can probably go out and pick up. Maybe not all of them, but there should be at least one of these guys on your waiver wire, considering their roster percentage. And hopefully they can help you win a championship. Those are guys that I'm looking at. They're not available in any of my leagues, but they're pretty deep. But they should be available in 12, 14 team leagues. So yeah, that's what I got. What do you think? What do you think, Bryce?
That's a lot to digest, Bryce. Any thoughts?
I knew that Cody was going to name off every player that I had on my list, except one. He didn't name one of them that I like. And I was going by sleepers percentage owned. This guy's 46% owned. I like Russell Gage a lot. He's arguably the number 1 receiver on the Falcons roster. He had a solid week this past week. He does have a really low floor, which literally is 0. Like he will throw up a goose egg occasionally. It's very rare, but yeah, 2 times, right. But when he's very active in that offense, and it seems like Matt Ryan does like him in the red zone, and he benefits from Kyle Pitts being still the best target on that team. I think Russell Gage would have a much better year, obviously, if Calvin Ridley was on the field, but we're not going to see Calvin Ridley till next year. And Cody mentioned that, in typical redraft leagues, unless like for some reason some of mine it's not a redraft, it's a keeper league. The trade deadline's not over yet, right? So I was going to mention a couple of players if your trade deadline was over that you could grab off waiver wire. Obviously, you want to try and get Madison if he was out there for some reason. But Chuba Hubbard is going to not help your team at all win the playoffs. He plays the Bills, Bucks, and Saints week 15, 16, 17. He is going to be horrible for your team. Just wanted to mention that. But if for some reason your trade deadline's over, let's say that someone's watching this and they're in like a keeper or a dynasty, I still have some players that we could target, right? Because Cody pretty much nailed it with all the players on free agency. I had the Tennessee running backs on there. Some of those other wide receivers, Christian Kirk was another guy on my list. So I'm going to go over some of the running backs. So I think when I'm looking for, if I'm going to compete in the championship, wide receivers have been relatively healthy this year, right? So you're probably not hurting in that department if you've been doing well this year. Running back has been a disaster. So here's some guys that are healthy or healthy now, and I think they're going to help you and with their matchups. So the number 1 guy I would target would probably be James Robinson if you're able to get him. Say someone, is not competing this year and is nervous about ETN coming in next year and potentially taking some touches away from James Robinson. You might be able to capitalize on some value there. I would have no problem sending away a first-round pick for this guy. Weeks 15, 16, 17, he plays the 30th ranked defense, the 26th ranked defense, and the 20th ranked defense in football. I didn't write the team's names down, but, I mean, that's a heck of a matchup. I know the last week's against New England, and they're horrible against the running back. Some other guys that I think you can get some value on. I will admit I was down on this guy earlier this year with the fractured, we thought was a fractured shin bone, but he has looked great ever since and getting a lot of touches. Antonio Gibson, he more than likely is going to be on a roster where they weren't doing well this year because he wasn't doing well at the beginning and middle of the year, but he's been putting up great numbers since. He plays the 16th, 13th, and 16th again in the fantasy playoffs. Great matchups. I've mentioned this guy before, Daryl Henderson, 23rd, 29th, and then he does play the 2nd-ranked defense in the fantasy playoffs for the last one. But if you get to the championship, it's worth it. And then Saquon Barkley is one of my last guys. 13th, 16th, and 22. You might be able to catch the owner is just irritated with him at this point. I'm done with the injuries. You might be able to buy him cheaper than what he's worth. He got, I believe, not quite 20 touches this week, but I think like around 17 or so. I think we start to see his full workload come in this week. He's got a new offensive coordinator. It is Freddie Kitchens, but it's better than Jason Garrett, who's god awful. And the very, very last guy is somebody I've been on this whole year. I think he is phenomenal. I'd be willing to overpay because I think he can put you over the hump in the fantasy playoffs, and it's Joe Mixon. The guy gets the ball so much, and he produces really well. He's another guy, Cody. Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon. Cody said he's never the answer, and he is the answer. Joe Mixon is a phenomenal athlete. I think he didn't benefit from literally being the only spark on that offense the past couple of years. He goes against the 12th, the 2nd, which I believe is the Ravens, and then the 15th defense in the fantasy playoffs. But when you get 30 touches, I really don't care what number defense you're playing against. He is one of those other guys that I think just runs hard, right? Like you always talked about he was always left to right. I feel like we're not really seeing that vertical or like horizontal movement. Like he runs hard and has stayed relatively healthy other than being banged up those couple weeks, which he still made the field on that 1 week that he was banged up. So those are some guys, if your trade deadline is still open, that I would be heavily targeting. I wouldn't mind overpaying a little bit for those guys because I think they can get you over the hump and potentially win you a ship. And that's what we play for. We don't play for the next year, the year after that, unless you're losing. If you have the chance to win it, go overpay and win it because you'll feel glad you did.
Yeah, even in the dynasty format.
Yeah, absolutely.
Win.
And that's a funny thing. You know, in one of my league chats, and I was kind of talking about this roster with the guys last night, and you know, I have Debo who went down with injury, and my roster's it's pretty deep in all the positions, quite honestly. But I was thinking about maybe moving a running back and thinking about trying to maybe get some depth just in case, because you know, it's Deontay and Adam Thielen are my next 2 men up that'll wind up playing in this team because I tend to start 4 or 5 running backs instead of extra receivers. You know, and so a guy today, I had posted in my league chat, I said, hey, you know, for some of those teams that are still competing or maybe even trying to compete, you know, I'm thinking about maybe moving a running back, add some depth at receiver. I keep getting offers of picks for players. I'm like, I don't want your stupid picks. I'm like in the playoffs right now, in the playoff contention. And with the injuries to the number 1 seeds, running back and receiver core, I'm like, I could very well win this thing. Like, no, I'm not trading away one of my starters for picks. Like, come at me with that business in the offseason. And that would be my encouragement is don't do anything crazy if your trade deadline is still this week or you know, somewhere in here. Because this is the league where I did trade myself into a good team. I was not a good team when I started the season. I somehow just made a bunch of good moves and am a good team. And, you know, don't go crazy just to go crazy. You know, be careful with things like that because you can fall off the ledge real quick with a few injuries. That's why I tried to add a lot of depth to this team, because the guys I was trusting were, you know, Debo, who has not exactly been the epitome of health in his NFL career. So, you know, and Saquon and some of these other guys that all got injured this year. Well, I made sure I had depth to cover that. And luckily enough, you know, I hit the waiver wire and made some savvy waiver wire pickups, Tennessee running backs. And, you know, I've been able to use that to help me as well. So that would be my biggest encouragement is don't do anything crazy. If you're a competing team, don't go crazy. Make sure you've got depth in case of injury. Yes. Make sure you got some guys that could help you in a pinch. And if you're trying to compete, do whatever you got to do to get yourself into that position. Unfortunately, you know, and I think Bryce actually mentioned a few weeks back, if you have to trade one of your elite players for a couple of good pieces because you need the help, you know, don't be afraid to trade one elite piece for a few good pieces that will, you know, be able to help you fill out your roster and give you a quality starting lineup kind of thing. All the players you guys mentioned, I mean, you know, they're all very fantasy relevant for the rest of the season or just in general. And they all have quality. I would bring up, and Sully brought his name up, but this would have been a name I would have brought up. You know, with DeAndre Swift's injury, Jamal Williams will be the guy they focus on giving the ball to the most. He's not DeAndre Swift or even close. I mean, this guy is a thumper between the tackles type guy. Sometimes can break a big run, but I just haven't seen it out of him in Detroit. You know, he did it a little bit with Green Bay, but the big plays will come in other ways if they even come at all. I mean, Detroit's just not a big play offense, unfortunately, but Williams will at least get volume, which could turn into production with the slate of games he has the rest of the season. It's not like he has, you know, the Buffaloes of the world and these top 5-10 run defenses. He's got matchups that are favorable. You know, and then Sully brings up Elijah Mitchell, which I think is a very good one to point out. But
that was the guy that I wanted to touch on for sure. That's a guy that we've been talking about collectively. I think all three of us have been pretty high on him all season. And
yeah, as long as he's healthy and good, I mean, good to go. They know how to use him in this offense, and he's very, very good in this offense. I'm interested to see, and we've seen Juwan Jennings take some more snaps and get a little bit more involved. I'm interested to see what they do with him, because he was kind of a kid I liked in 2020 when he was coming out. I wasn't sure exactly what to make of him when he went to San Fran, just because they typically like the smaller receivers that they can kind of use all over the field. But I really do think that kid could come on and be a little bit more valuable, but he's not a guy I would tell you to go run out and get as somebody to lean on, but definitely somebody to keep an eye on the roster if you have the space, because he could get more involved. The Debo groin injury I hate groin injuries because you never know. It's easy to re-injure those things throughout the season, depending on how you get hit. So, but Elijah Mitchell's an awesome play, especially with Debo out. Brandon Nyuk, I think, will be really interesting to see with him out as well. I mean, he's been, how many times have we talked about early in the season, like, what are they doing with him? Is he in the doghouse? Why do they hate him? And then all of a sudden now it's like, okay, well, he's good.
Yeah, I think we see that sometimes with young guys. They come in and they succeed, and then maybe it starts to seem easy, almost like, oh, this is just football. I've been dominating my whole life, and I did pretty well last year. Maybe that's all it was, and it came back down to earth, and the game didn't seem so easy anymore. I don't know. Like, it's hard to really say, but that's kind of what I feel like might have occurred, considering your head coach is saying that he's not putting the work in. That's really not something you typically hear out of a head coach about any player on their team, is that he's not putting in the work. That's I think one of the the worst things you could hear as a player. I feel
right.
like. And I think it speaks volumes, and he's been much better since that kind of came out. So I'm excited to see what IU can do too, because I think he has all the talent in the world. Coming into this year, many people thought that he was better than Debo. I mean, I think that they play differently. So, it is what it is. They just they play the game differently, and they're used differently in that offense. But a lot of people, in the Twitterverse and whatnot, we're calling Ayuk the wide receiver one on the team, that sort of a thing. So he has all the talent to do it. It's just, it's hard to say I don't obviously none of us are in that building. We don't know, what happens on the practice field and stuff like that. So it's hard to say, but Eli Mitchell is absolutely a guy that I'm going to lean on. He looked incredible last week, especially coming back from a broken finger. He's catching the ball okay. He runs hard too. I really like how he runs the ball. He's fast. He's big. Plays Houston in the finals, as well as I think Atlanta. Yeah, Atlanta, Tennessee, Houston in the playoffs. So that's definitely a guy that I like. I do want to touch on Joe Mixon here. I want to defend my take a little bit. So what it looks like to me is has a little touch of like Le'Veon Bell running style kind of a thing, which, he owes the success that he's having, in my opinion, to the offensive line. The offensive line is playing much better than any other offensive line he's ever had in his professional career by a fairly large margin. In my opinion.
That's not saying much, but
no, it's not. But they're playing well for any team at this point.
Right. Yeah.
The Bengals offensive line is playing very, very well. And so maybe what I'm thinking is he looks like he needs to be, he needs to see the hole. He needs to see the lane, the running lane, and then he hits it hard, right? I don't think they ever opened up before, so he was forced to, run east-west and side to side and try to like turn up field when something comes up, but then, the safety's there already, whatever. Like, it's just that's kind of what it seems like to me. Because it's very much what was happening before. So much east-west, trying to find a hole that just was never going to be there because the offensive line was terrible. And now that it's actually quite good, I'm going to have to change my tune on Joe Mixon a little bit, I guess. I loved him coming into the league. Absolutely loved him. He was a guy that I was screaming for them to draft during the draft. I didn't know that they'd do it in the second round. Because of, some issues.
Controversial, yeah. He punched that girl in the face.
And, I'm never truly going to be a Joe Mixon fan. But either way, I did, I did want them to draft him at the same time, and here we are. So this is kind of the Joe Mixon that I thought we were getting 3 years ago. So
yeah. Well, and he, but that's always been the issue with Cincy over the last 5 to 10 years. That offensive line has just not really been focused on enough to be built up, and they're finally starting to put pieces in place there. I mean, they've done a good job. The offensive linemen they've drafted in the first couple days of the draft have been solid offensive linemen. I know Jonah had the injury obviously his rookie season, but he was exactly as they expected, and it's been a good thing for him. And I hope that it works out, because that offensive line, if that offensive line is good, I mean that offense could really be something special. I mean, Joe, Jamar, all those pieces. I mean, it's funny we think of Tyler Boyd as an afterthought, even though he's so good as on his own. It's crazy.
Yeah,
I want to hit
written down as a drop guy, potentially a guy that you could just cut from your team.
Boyd.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, but it is what it is, right? It's just that's the way it looks. So
yeah, so I want to hit on a couple questions before we wrap up. One of which here is a start-sit conversation. Mike Ortiz, welcome, my friend. What's up, guys? Would you start Schultz, Goddard, or Freiermuth this week in a full PPR? I have Lamb, so I'm leaning Freiermuth. Man, that's a good problem to have, because all three of those tight ends I like. I mean, it's let me see.
Cody, should he be rostering all three?
Well,
not in redraft, I guess, right?
With these guys, yeah. But realistically, what I would say is you shouldn't have ended up with these guys. You should have traded one or two, both of them, probably two of these guys, and upgraded in other places earlier in the season is what I would really say, if I'm being honest.
I'll go because I have a decent opinion. I don't like Lamb's matchup. Yeah. Well, I don't like Lamb's matchup this week, right? I think Marcus Lattimore is extremely underrated. Like, I feel like he doesn't get talked about enough. And he is very good at shutting down like teams' best receivers a lot of times. Lamb is probably he's considered a stud, and obviously you got to start your studs. But I could see his production being limited with what I would assume Marcus Lattimore, shadowing him the whole game. And I think that opens the door up a little bit more for Schultz. It seems like Dak really likes to go to him. I am hearing Amari Cooper is expected to play by my.
They're activating him off COVID.
He's playing.
Okay. Yeah. So, who knows if he's still healthy? He's hurt every other week as well. But I think it does open the door for Schultz. He's a touchdown machine. He gets a lot of looks. I probably lean him this week just because I think that the Saints focus the wide receivers, and it opens up that door for Schultz.
I would probably lean Goddard just because he's facing the Jets. I mean, that's a bit of a juicy matchup of all the guys. I don't hate. You can't go wrong with any of these guys. I think Freiermuth is the least of, just because that passing offense is so erratic. But even he's got. I mean, even him, I would put in the kind of the upper end TE2 conversation.
He's a touchdown machine too. He gets one like every week. Seems like,
right.
So.
Yeah, I honestly think you can't go wrong either. I think that Amari Cooper coming back might throw a bit of a wrinkle in that Lattimore kind of conversation, because who's more likely to be moving around the field, Cooper or Lamb, moving in the slot outside, switching sides, whatever, or Cooper playing exclusively pretty much on the outside. I don't know. I don't really know. And I do like Schultz. I just think I would go with Freiermuth. Yeah, he's averaged a touchdown a game since their bye in week 7. And Baltimore is not particularly good against tight ends. So you could, I would probably go Freiermuth or Goddard. I don't know. You can't go wrong. Probably Goddard, then Freiermuth, then Schultz for me personally, but I don't think you can go wrong. I don't think you'll be upset with that.
Right.
There you go. I like it. Okay, so the last one I want to touch on. So this is one that's interesting because we don't know, right? When the initial Derrick Henry injury happened, it was 6 to 10-ish weeks, which put him back potentially around week 14. I was looking a little, and I'm still trying to look and see if there's anything that I'm missing. Nobody's really said much of anything when it comes to how he's rehabbing and how things are going. But B-Dubs asks, do we think Henry's back between week 16 and 17? If so, that's fantasy championship type time.
No, there's no way. According to Adam Schefter, I was reading about this earlier, like yesterday, I think. It'd be very surprising to see him play again this year, even if they make the playoffs, is what I'm hearing. And Adam Schefter is probably the most reliable source in the NFL, right? So I don't see it. If anything, he comes back in the playoffs, but there's no way I see Derrick Henry coming back anytime during the regular season. I just don't see it happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I mean, yeah, like at some point you just can't play him, right? Like, what are you going to do? Throw a hobbling Derrick Henry out there because you're trying to, get into the playoffs? They're close. Like the Tennessee Titans need probably 3 more wins. What are they? I think they have 8 right now. So they probably need 3 more wins in the AFC to get in. So
he just ran for 200 yards, over 200 yards. Like
yeah. Deontay Foreman just ran.
And that was with Dontrell Hilliard.
And Hilliard.
Dontrell Hilliard had that big one. Foreman was more of that, like, you could give it to him. He's getting you like 6-7 yards. Like they both looked really good. Foreman looked like the more consistent, getting you your Derrick Henry kind of runs, where Hilliard, busted off that big long one that kind of, helped his stat line a lot.
Yeah, I don't think Derrick Henry coming back is really going to change a ton anyways, unless he is fully healthy, which he's not going to be, period, before the end of the year. Like even in the playoffs, he's probably not going to be fully healthy either. So, yeah.
And I think Sully's right here. I think the Colts do need a little bit of luck as well as, and I mean, yes, Andrew Luck probably would help too. But Titans are pretty as close to winning this division as there can be, I think, at this point.
They probably need like maybe 2 more, maybe 1 might win the division for real.
Yeah.
Because I know the Colts have New England 1 week. Like the Colts had that game in the bag, and for some reason, Frank Wright did not want to give Jonathan Taylor the ball until like 1 drive. Like,
until they had to come back in the game.
Like, it made no sense. That play calling was extremely strange when you have the best running back in the NFL right now.
Yeah, I was thinking a couple of weeks ago about throwing a little bet on the Colts to win the division. Obviously, now I'm glad I didn't do that. But if they had beaten the Bucs, they'd be right in there. They would be looking like they got a real shot at it with the way the Titans are looking. But blowing that game, that really shot them in the foot. They might have a shot at the wild card. But either way, yeah, I don't think Derrick Henry plays again this year. I don't either. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really think he does. I guess in my mind, if they want to bring him back for a playoff run, that's one thing, but I just don't know that it makes any sense. So I would say probably not this year. In the regular season, playoffs maybe, but even that I don't know that this team's really gonna do much in the playoffs. I don't know why they would want to rush him back and get him hurt again.
Teams are shutting down, like Christian McCaffrey's getting shut down. Like guys are getting shut down that aren't playoff teams. So
the Titans have 5 games left, and 2 of those 5 games are against the Texans and the Jaguars. So unless they somehow lose both of those, the others might be a little. I mean, they play the Steelers too, but it seems that might not be. And then the Dolphins
should
look
win
better,
that.
and then the 49ers, even though their record might not show it, they're better than their record in my opinion.
Yeah, Dolphins and 49ers will become competitive games, with the other 3 the Titans should have no problem winning them.
Yeah,
they're going to stumble into the playoffs and probably get bounced in the first round, I'd imagine.
Yeah,
be a probably ideal matchup for any team in the playoffs. They probably want the Titans.
Yeah. There might be teams that are like thinking about that in week 18.
Oh, I bet that could definitely be a strategy.
Yeah,
sure.
If we lose, we could play the Titans.
Right.
Out there with the backups.
yeah, right. Like honestly, that could be a little bit of gamesmanship, and you always want to play to win, but at the same time, set yourself up a nice juicy matchup. If you're not getting that first round bye anyways, you might as well play the worst team.
All right. So Victor says best end of bench stash: Daryl Williams, Sony, or Miles Sanders. I think Miles Sanders.
I think Miles Sanders, as long as he's
I know it's Miles Sanders for sure. Yeah, he's healthy as their number 1. The other 2, the starter would have to get hurt for me to even consider him.
And then his follow-up question is, will Swift be shut down?
Yeah,
because
I don't see why not.
Yeah, he will for sure. for sure. There's no point. Again, like that was another guy that I couldn't think of his name when I was talking about Christian McCaffrey. Swift getting shut down too. No point.
Yeah.
No point.
And Sanders has a cake schedule, Sully says. So there you go.
As a Detroit Lions fan, you don't even want your best player out there.
They need to shut down TJ.
I need Swift to come back.
As a guy who got the first overall selection one year, you don't want your best player out there. Just lose. It's great.
Yeah.
I need to let him sit out there.
All right. So Trey says, "Evening, gents. Welcome, sir. Got a few questions. Full PPR. Russell or Burrow, and then 2 flex. James Conner, Elijah Mitchell, or Mark Andrews. Eckler and Henderson are my 1 and 2. I think it's Burrow because Russell's been so up and down.
For sure, Burrow.
It's crazy to say to me, even as a Bengals fan. Like that's
And then I think James Conner just because it's a good matchup.
I'm saying Elijah Mitchell. If they're giving a dude the ball 30 times a game, Debo is not going to take any runs away from him now. Like he literally might get 25 plus rushing attempts.
Yeah, is it one of those 3?
Yeah, it says flex. So you're picking for the flex.
I'm picking Elijah Mitchell.
Elijah Mitchell. I ain't even thinking about it. Against Seattle,
I like James Conner with the touchdown upside as a great option, but Elijah Mitchell is like an elite flex option, a really high end running back 2 option.
Look what Washington football team's running backs just did to Seattle. Yeah, I'm taking Elijah Mitchell absolutely against Seattle.
Yeah, Eckler and Henderson as your 1 and 2. Those are good options.
Yeah, that's
I like Conner or Mitchell. Either one is fine with me. Conner is no slouch either. I mean, this dude is a very high-end fantasy running back right now without anybody to really take touches. The guy's getting, 15 to 20 touches a game plus receptions. I mean, he's doing very well, which is pleasantly surprising because I really didn't know what to make of this kid after he left Pittsburgh with all the injuries. So he's done a good job and he's been healthy all year. Follow-up question he has last. Choose 2 this time. Devonta, Judy, Gallup, Mooney.
Mooney's number 1 out of those options for me. Did Devontae Smith just put up a goose egg?
Yeah, he had a tough. Well, I think he had like 6 point something in mind, but he got a fumble.
Oh, he had 4.
I think it's got to be Mooney and Smith just because Judy's QB situation shaky and Gallup is
Judy's quarterback worse than Jalen Hurts though?
Well, if it's Drew Lock, maybe. It's Teddy Bridgewater.
I think Bridgewater. He got hurt and came back. Yeah, he's
Teddy will play.
Did he come back? Okay.
Yeah, he came back and scored another touchdown. I'm probably still going Smith and Mooney, but I mean,
wait a minute. You just tried to argue that and then agreed with me?
Well, I just asked if he put up a goose egg. He didn't get goose egged. Well, I'm just saying I'm gonna go with Smith just because I really don't even know like what a good reason would be, but I just think he gets more volume than Judy. I think Judy's better than Smith personally, and I like the quarterback play, but volume is probably leaning Smith's side as of recent. If you take out this past week, probably looking better.
All right. Bryce, first and foremost, Bryce, you know that I love you. So when I'm about to say this, it's out of love. You just pulled a Leone. You literally just argued yourself in a circle, and then
no. You were just saying you're choosing him. You're choosing him because of the quarterback, and all I was saying is
Sullivan.
He really better,
Sullivan, you better get your boy here. He's
I just saying it's really better. I was just saying is he really better. I didn't choose Judy yet, but you said Hurts is better than Teddy, and I really don't. I think Hurts is an actual quarterback for fantasy. Definitely is, but passing quarterback, they're probably not much farther apart.
To avoid pulling the Leone, you got to bring that point up first. And then
that's so good.
The full.
I didn't pick my wide receiver yet. To be fair.
Yeah, and Sully says Smith versus Jets is better than Judy versus Chiefs. The Chiefs defense has gotten better as the season going on.
Yeah, they're getting healthier and it's getting better. They're figuring it out.
The Jets coming off a dub with Zach Wilson
against the Houston Texans.
No, they beat the Eagles, didn't they?
No, they beat the Texans.
Oh, they beat the Texans.
They play the Eagles this week.
The Giants beat the Eagles. The Giants beat the Eagles. So that's not much better.
Let's go.
Are the Jets beating the Eagles this week?
Yeah, well, the Jets can. Maybe you never know. Zach Wilson's out again, right? So they probably do have a chance.
Is he out again?
Is he?
He got hurt.
He's banged up again.
What?
He got hurt in that game. He left the game.
He got banged up again, yeah. But I don't know if he's out this week.
Gosh, what a wuss!
That kid's not going to be it, man. I've been saying it the whole forever. He's not.
Oh wait, it says he's got no limitations moving forward as of the 29th.
Until he takes another hit.
He'll be all right.
Until Fletcher coughs.
I think he'll go through the learning curve and he'll be fine. It's just I don't think any quarterback would have went to that team and did well. I really don't. Like I don't think Mac
don't disagree with that whatsoever. But
I think he just needs better.
That's better. And the Titans.
Let me rephrase it. Is he better than Trey Lance or Justin Fields or Mac Jones?
He's definitely not better.
Right now, Mac Jones is the best quarterback from the rookie class. Right?
Mac Jones is the best quarterback from the rookie class for sure.
Would you have selected him over any of those three?
No. Fields hasn't done anything really that impressive. Like he's had some good rushing games and all. To be fair, I haven't really watched much of the Bears, but from what statistically and highlights,
I blame the coaching staff for that one.
Staff in Chicago, yeah.
And Trey Lance, that's still up in the air. I mean, that's like choosing the unknown at this moment. So I don't think the Jets are regretting that pick yet, but I think it's possible. They're obviously regretting not taking Matt.
That one game we saw out of Trey Lance, I put him over Zach Wilson personally.
Really, he rushed well, but he didn't do anything in the passing game, did he? Did he even throw for 100 yards?
I don't know. I think he was like 50%, like literally 10 for 20 or something like that.
Unfortunately, in the world we live in, people don't give these guys time to develop because you see a few pop off. I want these rookie quarterbacks to have a little time.
Except
Trevor Lawrence was drafted 1-1, and I don't blame him for what this year's been. I blame that crappy coaching staff. Justin Fields, I don't blame him. I blame his crappy coaching staff. Like Zach Wilson's in the same situation.
The one guy that is getting a chance to sit and learn is Trey Lance, except for that 1 week where Jimmy got hurt and he had to play, obviously.
Right.
But
he's in the best situation at this point just because of that outside of Mac Jones. I mean, it is what it is. Most of us are wrong that Mac Jones should have been the
he's just advanced cerebral, like he just sees the field and he's just already a pro, like mentally, I think.
Oh, and
he's probably the least talented, like in the sense of like overall athletic ability of all those guys. But
well, that's why he fell down our boards because he wasn't the most athletically gifted. But
yeah,
it looks like he's got the best between the ears situation going on.
He's not putting up crazy fantasy numbers, like he's averaging like 15 points. So, but
he's doing everything right. There's
one
or two, like there's some throws here and there, but other than that, like
he's every quarterback has that, right?
Yeah.
He's number 2 completion percentage. That's
he's done very good maximizing the opportunity and limiting the turnovers for sure.
With not great talent too. No stars. Like everyone just does their job.
He made stars. He made Kendrick Bourne a star.
He is not a star. Kendrick Bourne is not a star. Come on.
They paid him big money to
produce with volume. Anybody can produce with volume. Kendrick Bourne has played well, but they need to go get either draft or get a free agent stud to really. I don't know if they need to take it to the next level, but it would definitely make that offense more explosive.
Trey Burks, man. Trey Burks.
He's coming to Detroit. Stop that.
I really hope that if he falls to New England, oh my gosh. Oh, I would take Olave as well. Those are the top two in my opinion.
Sullivan.
Trey Burks would be the guy. There's no way Detroit's getting Trey Burks, Brad. You know it. There's no possible way.
You shut your dirty mouth.
Do you think
next year's first for some reason, which would never happen?
Do you hope they draft an end, or do you hope they draft like? Do you think
it won one. If they don't take an edge rusher, they've just made a bad decision. They got 2 first, so the first I want them to take an edge guy.
They do have
whatever they're. Yeah, we have the Rams. We have the Rams other first. So we've got in the 20s. So we got a wide receiver there.
Maybe get Trey Burks. Maybe I think he goes before then, but
yeah, I'm sure there's probably some receivers.
I've been watching recent mock drafts, and he's been falling like. I've seen one where he was the first wide receiver taken, and then the other ones like he's fallen in the mid
all over.
It's because of the team he plays for in college. That's all it is.
Arkansas is kind of a weird spot for wide receivers.
I think he ends up getting taken first out of all the wide receivers. But.
He should be, in my opinion.
Big fan. But there's also plenty of other options that could go. I mean, people are going to make the case because Garrett Wilson's really good and Olave's really good, and all these things. So. there's a lot to like in this receiver class. I mean, there's a lot to like in this draft class coming up. There's plenty of running backs, plenty of receivers, some interesting tight ends that are in weird spots. I mean, it's a cool class that we're going to get into. Segue. Stick with us because we've got rookie content. We're already beginning working on that. We're starting to put that together. That'll be coming like we did last year. Last year we had the rookie draft site, which is way too many players ranked on there, and we talked about and we built profiles for. We're gonna do that again. We're giving you guys a ton of rookie content. We thank you guys always for hanging out with us. I know some of you watch the entire time, and that we love it and we appreciate it. If you guys have questions and come across this after the fact, drop them in the comments. We've got like 4, 5, 6 of us that keep an eye on the comments on YouTube and respond as quickly as we can. Hit Discord, hit rotoheat.com. You get all the answers you can wherever you're at in the world. We thank you guys as always. We hope you guys win this weekend, and we're glad to help. So thank you guys as always. Oh, don't forget, next week, spoiler alert, we're going to do a Dynasty mock draft on Tuesday night. We're going to get some folks from the fantasy community involved, and we're going to do because we've been talking kind of our top 10s, we're going to put our money where our mouth is and do a Dynasty startup mock draft. Just have a little fun with it because, it's Dynasty at this point in the year. Trades are over, so we're going to do something different. So come in Tuesday night, ask some questions, have some fun. We'll see you guys later.